Okay, so yeah, I think it has started. Okay, so where we left was that. So basically, so we saw this flow. So wherein we created one requisition, and using that we created the purchase order. Okay, and then using the purchase order, we initiated for the approval. Okay, so this approval which we saw in the purchase order screen, so this is same thing what we had it already. Okay, the approval flow that we defined for requisition, as I said, it is almost similar, which means that we do not have any change. So it's the same thing, but in a different screen that we are doing. Okay, because the transaction it is different. Okay, so that's what about the approval. And now we will have to receive this item. Okay, so as part of this, I will also cover this tab. So tab is nothing but transaction account builder. Okay. So now, when will I go for transaction account builder, or why do we need transaction account builder? Is that, sorry, just give me 1 minute. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so we'll see for what we will use this transaction account builder. Okay, so for what scenario, basically we will use this. Okay, so primarily we'll use this transaction account builder for three purposes. Okay, so one is that for accrual. So I'll just explain what is accrual after this. Okay, so first I'll explain what are the things that we will do in transaction account builder. Okay, so there are three accounts that basically we will derive. Okay. So the first thing is that the accrual account and then the variance account and then the charge account. I mean the flow. I mean in the sense the sequence is not exactly like this. Sequence could be charge account, accrual, variance. So whatever the sequence that we can follow, we can do that. But in terms of configurations, so we will need these three accounts that needs to be set up in the system. Okay, so unless I do this configuration in the system, so system will not allow me to do the purchase order. So for the purchase order, we have already done the configuration because we used the existing setup. Okay, if we are doing it from the scratch, so whatever we are going to do now, so that we will have to do. Okay, so after that we can create the purchase order because because we have seen two transactions. Okay, so one is a requisition and the purchase order. Okay, so now this account will be picked up. I mean this account and the charge account. Okay, these two accounts will be picked up in the purchase order. Okay, but then here, if you see in the requisition screen, we can enter the accounts manually. So even in the requisition which we created yesterday, so we did not automate this process of generating the accounts automatically, but instead what we did is that so we created it manually. Okay, so there will be certain requirements wherein user will need in a way that he or she will select the accounts. Okay, so what are the scenarios that they might need is that, so probably let's assume that, so we are into construction business, okay. So now I have my project details that will be populated, okay, because I don't want to give the project information manually. So instead, I wanted probably let's say a way that if a project number is created in project accounting module, so I wanted to populate this automatically here. So based on this value, I will select the account code combination. Okay. So in this case, let's assume that my account code combination is something like this. So company, I have it. Okay. And then I have the department. Okay. And then probably let's say I have account and then intercompany and then the project segment and one future segment. Okay, so this is my chart of account combination. Okay, so now if you see, so these accounts we can derive it based on the combination that we are giving it. Okay, so this we can do. So even the future one. But when it comes to the project segment, so unless this particular requester, so who requests for the item, we will not know for what project we are basically procuring this item or for what purpose this particular item will be used. Okay, for that purpose, it is a common requirement that this needs to be selected manually, which means that user will enter this combination when they create the requisition. But then in the purchase order, they don't want to select it manually because they wanted to copy the information that is given in the requisition. Because let's say that one user is creating the requisition and also the purchase order. So in this case, this user will not enter the same information again in the purchase order screen because the information is
Yeah,
already given in the requisition. Okay,
right.
so for that reason, so we will have this information entered manually in case of requisition. Okay, but then in case of purchase order, we will have to generate it manually. So now
Okay.
this combination is common. So what we are referring to accrual and the charge account is this particular field that we are referring to. Okay, so now So what exactly is charge account? So charge account is actual expense or actual what do you call the, if I'm purchasing the asset, so the actual account that I wanted to keep. So let's say I'm purchasing office supplies. So what I'll do is that, so I'll have this account as office supplies. Okay, so I will not have this as an charge account or a clearing account, but it is actual expense account that I'm capturing. So this is for the office supplies that I'm purchasing. So let's assume that I'm not doing an office supply. So instead, what I'm doing is that, so I'm probably purchasing an asset. Okay, so this I'm purchasing as an laptop table or something. Okay, so let me call it laptop table. Okay, so now here I'll have separate account defined for this particular purchase. So the charge account that I'm going to keep here is that nothing but the laptop table. Okay, so if I'm let's say I'm paying some expense. Okay, so let's say I'm paying this as a contract payment. So in this case there are two options. So one is that I can directly create the invoice in accounts payable module. So that is one option. Or if I want to have a proper control, wherein I wanted to basically track this item starting from the requisition till it is paid to the supplier or the contractor. So now what I will do is that, so I'll have a separate account called contractor payments. Okay, so this would be my expense account. So when we say charge account, it is actually the real-time expense that we are incurring is what we are referring to the charge account. Okay, so now,
Okay.
okay,
So
so
if
yeah,
it is real time expenses is charged, but accrual I'm not getting it like.
yeah, I'm coming to that.
Okay.
I'm coming to that. So so now we know that this is the expense that we are capturing. Okay. So now why do we need accrual, or what exactly is accrual is that? So when we, if you remember our first session, so we had something called accounting method in our ledger creation script. Okay. So which said that standard accrual. Okay. So now what exactly is standard accrual, or what are the other options that we have? So we have something called cash basis accounting. So now what exactly is the difference between standard accrual and the cash basis accounting is that? So the accounting method is nothing but how I'm going to account this particular transaction. So that's the little meaning of accounting method. So now there are two methods that we can use. So let's say I am purchasing an item from uh, let's say vendor A. Okay, so I'm purchasing item A. Okay, so now I have received the item. Okay, so and I make the payment immediately, which means that my purchase date, let's say I have released the purchase order on 1st of January. Okay,
Okay.
so now, okay, so let me put the same thing here. Okay, but then the item that I'm getting from the supplier is on 6th of Jan. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Case, what will happen is that in the case of cash basis accounting, so I cannot ask for the probably the 5 days or 10 days, the terms, the payment terms that I cannot request for the additional days. So whatever the item that I purchase, so when I paid this, so it could be, let's say I'm paying on the same day. If I'm paying on the same day, which means that I will pay on 6th of January. So I capture this transaction in the system. So let's say in other case, so I'm not paying on immediate basis. So let's say I have payment term of 3 days. So in this case, I will pay on 9th January. Okay.
Okay.
But then the item that I have booked is being received on 6th of January. Okay, so now the payable amount is on 9th of January. Okay, So now on 6th of January, I'm not going to book any transaction in the system. So it's only the receipt that I have created. Okay. So no accrual, nothing has created. So now what I'm doing is that, so I'm creating the invoice on, let's say, 9th of January and payment will be done on the same day. Okay, so this is
Okay.
the process in cash basis accounting, which means unless I book the transaction or unless I perform this particular activity, that is, it could be the payment or it could be the receiving the item. So whatever happens, that I'm going to book in the system. So this is called cash basis accounting. Okay, so now I have accrual basis accounting. So now what
So you
exactly
mean
is
to
accrual?
say whenever we receive cash, that time we'll make an entry into the accounting
Correct.
system. That's the reason it is cash basis.
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
So if it is on the AR side, so when we receive, so that is when we are creating the transaction in the system. And if
Okay.
it is about the payment, so when I pay to the vendor, so that is the time that I'm going to record this transaction.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. And then we have something called accrual. So now what exactly is accrual is that? So accrual is a term that is used if I want to basically perform a transaction. So let's say I have created this receipt on 6th of January. So I know that I might want to pay this on, let's say, 9th of January. Okay. So now what I will do is that, so I will create an accrual. So the reason why I'm creating this accrual is that, so that I can identify whatever the receipts that I have booked in the system. So these are invoiced, meaning, so the flow will go something like this. So I'll just explain with the accounting entry. So though this is finance part, so there are some cases that we will have to discuss with the finance manager,
Okay.
wherein this procurement manager and the entire team will be sitting. So if at all the finance person is not sitting with us, so we will
Hmm.
have to explain them that how this flow will go through, and if there is any question on this, so we will have to take that up. So
Okay.
for that purpose, I'm just explaining. Okay. So now I have my debtor and creditor. Okay. So now I will have my receiving account on the debit side, and then I will. So I'll just explain this. I'll just put the entries here, and then I will explain. So how it is being populated. Okay.
Hmm.
So first is that it could be the receiving account that is debited. Okay. And then we will have the AP accrual account. Okay. And then when we do the delivery, so this is receipt part, and then we'll book the delivery. Okay. So once the item is delivered into the inventory, so then we will have again the entry. So that is our material account. So it could be material or expense or asset account. So this is nothing but our charge account. Okay. And here we are saying this is again the receiving. Okay. So then when it comes to invoicing, so it is AP accrual again. Okay. And we'll have the liability, and from here liability to cash or cash clearing. So in this case I'm just saying it is cash account. Okay. So now to understand this, so I'll just also put the transactions here. Okay. And then invoice, and then the payment. So now when I receive the item, so I'm saying, so this is, so here if you see, so these all are our control accounts. So when we say control account, it is meaning that temporary account or the clearing account, which will be knocked off. Okay, so this temporary account or the clearing account is created only for the purpose of tracking our expenses. So whether
Hmm.
this particular transaction has booked in the system, so that's the purpose of having the control accounts. Okay. So now if I want to, probably let's take that I am looking at my trial balance. Okay, so where I'm seeing this So this you will see in what you call after the migration and the other activities. So even after the go live, so we might get some questions from the users saying that my receiving account is not closed entirely. So basically after the implementation, we will have post-production support that is for the period of 3 months. Okay, so during that period, so we will get this issues mostly. So that is my receiving account is not closed in the trial balance. So still it is showing zero. So now what are the reasons that it will show as zero is that so this is not closed. Okay, so now to understand. So when I create receipt, so now I have released the purchase order to the vendor. So vendor has accepted it, and vendor, if you see here, so vendor has delivered the item on 6th of January. Okay, so the PO date is 6th of January. So I'm booking this receipt. So when I book the receipt, so the accounting entry would be receiving because I'm receiving the item. So now I have received the item, but then I don't know whether the invoice is created in the system or not. So to track this, I'm introducing an account called AP accrual account, which will make sure that this invoice is created. Because if I receive an item, so which means that I'm liable to pay this amount to the vendor. So
Yeah.
now, in order to track this, so we are introducing this account called AP accrual. Okay. So now I will have my receiving, that is item is being received. Okay. And now since I have received the item, I'm booking the accrual in the system. Okay. So when we deliver this item, so this is when I understand that this is the item that I have bought into my inventory. Meaning it could be the inventory item, or it could be the asset item, or it could be the actual expense. Okay. So expense could be this one, contract payment and the other things. So
Mm-hmm.
asset could be this laptop table. This account
Mm-hmm.
could be asset account. And then material account could be raw material or something like that. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
that's the account that we are referring to. So that is our charge account. Okay, so now I have received the item. Okay, so this is again a control account, meaning that I wanted to make sure that I have completed my receiving part. For this purpose, I'm having this account wherein if I book the delivery, so this account will be closed. Okay, so now if you see, so still I have AP accrual account. So meaning here I have received this item, this material, okay, meaning that I have closed this one. But then still I have my accrual that is in open. So now if you take only these two entries, so I have received the item, so the receiving part is knocked off. And now if you see here, so I have my AP accrual and I have on the debit side the material account. So now, meaning I have received the item, this particular raw material I have received for the purpose of project or whatsoever the purpose it is. So I have received this item, but then I have not invoiced this particular receipt. Okay. So now when I create the invoice, so I'm knocking off this accrual, meaning the receipt which I have received, so that is being invoiced. Okay. So now this
Mm-hmm.
part is done. So then after this, what I'm doing is that, so this liability is again a temporary account. Okay. So this is created to understand if this particular payment is created against this invoice. Okay.
Okay.
So now if you see, so the invoice is created, but invoice is a legal document. So with this legal document, I'll have to make the necessary payment to the vendor. So which account will make sure this process is that this liability. So here if you see, so when I make the payment, so this liability will be knocked off. So now
Mm-hmm.
if you remove all this control accounts, meaning so debit my expense and credit my cash. So this is kind of an accounting rule wherein I'll just put it in the simple term. Okay, so we have expense, okay, and then we have revenue, and then we will have our asset account and the liability account. Okay, so now here, if you see, I'll say if it is increases and if it is decrease. Okay, so now if expense is increasing, this will be on the debit side. Okay, if the expense is decreasing, so then it will be on the credit side. Okay, and then when the revenue is increasing, so that will be on the credit side. And when the revenue decreases, it will be on the debit side. Okay, so similarly for the liability, when it increases, so this will be on the credit side, and when the liability decreases, so it's the same thing. Okay, so this is your accounting rule basically. Okay, so whatever the account that you see, so with this rule, basically you can say that this account will be on the debit side or this account will be on the credit side. So all we will have to understand is that the nature of the account. Okay. So now if you see this, so this is nothing but my asset account. So this one and this one, all these things are my asset account. So this is my liability account. Okay, this and this one. Okay, so now as a whole if you see, so this is knocked off, and yeah, again here if you see, so this is my asset account. So that's the reason if you see, so asset is basically I wanted to pay this particular amount to party A or B or C. Okay, so in that scenario, if you see, so it becomes your payable. So that's the reason we are having this on the credit side. Okay, so meaning, so the asset that we are having is decreasing. So cash I have it in my hand, but then I'm giving this cash for the purchase that I have made, meaning that I'm giving out the asset that I'm having. If I'm giving out from my hand, which means that the balance is decreasing. So if the asset is decreasing, so this will be on the credit side. Okay, so using this, basically you can understand the whole accounting. Okay, so now this is the purpose of having accrual. So from where we are basically picking this accrual account is that from this setup called transaction account builder. Okay, so this is where we are taking this. So now when I match this receipt or the purchase order, so system will automatically take this account, because when I book the purchase order, so at this stage itself I'm saying this is the account that I'm going to use for my accrual. Okay, so which will be used here in the receipt and also in the invoice. Okay, so
Okay.
now we have something called variance account. So now when will I have a variance account is that? So when we say variance account, it is PO variance account that we are talking about. Okay, so it will come here again. So now what exactly is variance account? So variance is something difference between the item price. Okay, so we call it a list price or item price. Okay, item price and the PO price. So I might have set this item price, so that is laptop could be probably I might have discussed with the vendor and agreed for 32,000. Okay, so now I have taken some time in order to confirm back to the vendor. So between this, I am assuming that this is the price. So I have used this price. So now vendor comes back and says that. So this is not for 32,000 and but this is for 35,000. Okay. So now there is a variation of 35,000. So now this is my list price or the uh, item price. So this is my PO price. Okay. So now based on this, system will calculate it that this is my variance. So if I don't have this price defined for the item, so then that is fine. So system is not going to calculate this variance. But if I have this item price and again I'm changing my PO price, then system will pick this account. So now if I don't configure this, that is transaction account builder is not configured in the system, so then system will not be able to understand the variance account and it will throw an error that variance account is not defined, so will not be able to submit even for the approval. Okay, so in order to complete this, so we will need this setup called transaction account builder. Okay, so now this is the purpose of defining these setups. Okay, any question till this point?
No.
Now
So like
we have something called
every
mapping set.
customer,
Okay. So now
sorry,
firstly, so what exactly is mapping set? So mapping set
hello.
is similar to the approval rule that we have defined. It is not exactly, but I'll just tell in terms of how it is similar. So now here in the approvals, so what we are doing, so we are setting up the condition, okay, which means that if this condition matches, then action, that is approve or routed for approval. Okay, so now in this mapping set again, so what I'm saying is that, so I'm writing a condition saying if this condition matches, then pick the account, then account is generated. Okay, so now based on this condition, so here we are saying this is the approval route, and here based on the condition we are saying this is the account that system needs to generate. Okay. So now when will I use mapping? So it's not only the mapping set that I can use. Okay. So I have different options that I can use. So even the static value or the constant value that I can use as a condition, because this mapping set gives us leverage in terms of defining in the system, because if we want to load as an FBDA or the Excel format, so that we can do it. So that's the flexibility that we have it using this mapping set. Okay, so or else we have even the option of setting it as an account rule directly, so I can give the accounts there, or if I have defined the account rule separately for this, I can define, or if I want to give the constant value, so we can define. So we'll see that in system. Okay. To understand, so this is basically used for this. Okay, so this is nothing but by condition I can give, or directly I can give this is the value that I want system to pick. Okay, so now how this is associated, or how system will understand that this is the account that I need to pick, because I might have defined 10 different rules or 10 different accrual accounts in the system, but then how system will understand is that, so we have something called accounting options. So here if you see, so to what we will attach is that, so to the primary ledger that we create. So we have seen already, so how to create the primary ledger. Okay, so after creating that, so we also have the accounting option. So now if I want to attach this mapping set and the account rule that I have created in the system, so I wanted to basically attach it to this primary ledger, because that is when system will understand. Because here if you see, if you take both requisition and PO, so this is created at business unit, but then this business unit is associated with the primary ledger. If you remember our business unit functions, so where we attached ledger, primary ledger, and also we attached our legal entity. Okay, so this function is associated with this BU. So this is how this is linked. That is the reason we are attaching this accounting rule that we are creating is being attached to the primary ledger. So we cannot attach it to the business unit. It is to the primary ledger that we are attaching this. Okay. So based on this, we are generating these accounts. So I'll just show in the system. So what are the setups that we'll have to do, and what are the options that we have. Okay.
Is this a mandatory or base configuration, this tab,
Yeah, mandatory. So we will have to do this. So if we don't do this, so we'll not be able to complete the pivot transaction.
your transaction? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So I'll just switch to procurement, and here if I come down, yeah, this is the one. So here if you see procurement transaction account rules. Okay.
Roots.
So This is what I was referring to the transaction account builder. So now,
Okay.
if you see, so first step is to define the mapping set, okay, and the second setup is to create the account role wherein we will attach this mapping set to this, and then finally we'll attach this to the transaction account definition, and this transaction account definition will be associated with the ledger. So that is what we are referring to the sub ledger accounting options. Okay, so we'll see all these configurations.
Mm-hmm.
So first I'll go to this one. So that is mapping set. Okay, so I'll just say new. Okay, so let me give this as accrual. Okay, so here if you see, so if I want to give the account combination that I can give, so account combination is nothing but this. If you see here, so probably for this I might have 10. So when we say account combination, it is 10.100 dot 4132 dot 100 dot probably 00 and then 00. So this is our account combination. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and then here if you see, so we also have the segment and the value set. So segment is nothing but for a particular segment, this one if I want to write, so I can write.
Okay.
Okay, so that is for, let's say instead of writing it to company, I wanted to write it for the account. Okay, and then also we have value set. So now what exactly is the difference between the segment and the value set? Because this value set is associated anyway to the segment. So now the difference is that, so this one value set I might have used to different segments, meaning this value set that I have created for company, so I might have used for intercompany also. So which means now here whatever the rule that I'm writing here, so which will apply to both the company and the intercompany. So that's the reason we have this value set. But in case that I'm writing it for account, so which does not make any difference, so I will not write it against the value set, so instead I'll write it against the segment. Okay, so the other segments will remain same. Okay, so meaning whatever that I have created or entered in the requisition screen, so that's the one that I wanted to populate. Okay, but then if I'm creating this purchase order automatically, so I wanted to basically pick my account value. Okay, so for this, so it's the usual practice that it's not only for the account that you will create, usually we'll create it for all the segments. Okay, so including future one. So feature one, there are two ways that we can handle. So one is that in GL, so they will set this as default. So if that is done, then we will not write rule for future. But if that is not done, so we can write a standard rule saying that for this segment, we can say this is a constant one. So we have something called constant here, so which we can use. Okay. So meaning whatever the transaction that I'm creating, so for the future one, it will be always 00. Okay. Yeah, so let me just pick this one, that is segment. Okay. So now here if you see, so we have two things. So one is input source. So this is what I was referring to the if condition. So now this becomes my condition. So if this is the one that I'm looking at, okay, so this if condition is nothing but the skeleton. So when I say skeleton, so I'm just saying this is a field that I want system to look into it. But then after this, I'll have to specify what exactly is the value, because it will look for the value unless the value is there in the transaction. So system is not going to consider this rule which we have written for the defaultation or the accrual or the charge account derivation. Okay, so that's the purpose. So now I'll just say add. Okay, So here if you see, so I have my purchasing module, okay, as the offering, okay. So now this tool which I'm running is for the purchasing class. So purchasing, so this is again the accounting type. So meaning this will make sense when we do the FAH. So FAH is another module inside finance. Okay. So finance, they have common modules like AP, ARGL, FA and CMS. But then this FAH is something kind of an accounting hub. Okay. Because here if you see, so we have these events that is created already in the system. But then in the FAH, we will not have this event class also. So this will have to create for everything. Okay, so that's the difference between this transaction account builder and the FAH that they have it in the Fusion. Sorry, the finance. Okay. Yeah, so here I'll have to select the actual uh, field to derive my balance at the account code combination. Okay. So in this case, so let me say or let me use basically the supplier. Okay. So if this is the supplier, then I wanted to generate this account. Okay. So this is what is the rule that we are writing. So you can add multiple roles. So for now, I'm using one rule. Okay. So this is based on the supplier. So now I will have to specify the chart of accounts that I'm going to use because there are a lot of chart of accounts that we'll be using. Okay. So I'll have to specifically say for this. So based on this, it will validate whether this chart of account has access to the ledgers that I'm going to attach in the next step. Okay. So now I have created this. So that is, I have created one mapping set. This should be open. Okay, sorry, I did not select the segment. So I'll just write this for account. Okay, and then I will add the input. So the input here I'll use is that advanced. Okay, so if this is the supplier, then I wanted to generate this account code combination. So let me search for the expense account. So let me call this as an software expense, which means the renewal or the subscription that I'm paying for. Okay. So for this, I'm creating this purchase order. So that's the thing that we are trying to achieve here. Okay. So now here, if you see, so I have given this is my if condition. If this is the supplier, so this is, as I said, this is nothing but the field that I'm selecting here. So supplier is the field that I want to select, but the actual condition is put here in the mapping. Okay, so that is I am using this advanced graph. Okay, so if this is the suppliers and this is the account that I want to select. So now we have created it for the account segment. So similarly, let me use it, I mean, let me create it for the other segments as well. Okay, so still we have 5 segments. So quickly we'll create for the other 5 segments also. Okay, so it's the same process. It's about only this thing, the value that we are selecting. Okay, so again here I'll say the same thing. That is supplier. Okay, and the chart of account is US primary ledger. Sorry, US chart of account. and then this is for the company segment that we are writing this. Okay, so here again I'm going to use the same condition, and here if you see, so let's say Supremo Fitness. Okay, so if I'm using Supremo Fitness, just give me a moment. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so I'll just create for the other segments also. So if you see, so I'm just using the same thing. Okay, so I'll just note down so that we can use this combination here. Okay, so I'll just do save and close. So similarly, I'll create for the remaining three segments as well. So this is the one.
Where is the condition that we are defining here? Which one?
This one, the supplier.
Supplier.
Yeah,
Okay.
input source is the condition.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we are saying it is the field supplier, and we are saying this is the supplier name. So if this is the supplier name that I'm using in the transaction, then I wanted to generate this account which we are giving here. Okay.
Okay.
I think okay. I thought there is a project segment and I created for that. Yeah, so lastly, I'll define it for line of business. Okay, so we have done the mapping set. Okay, so the next thing that we have is that this one called account rule. Okay, so here, if you see, so I have different combinations that I can use. Okay, so this is what I was referring to. So I can either create the mapping set or I can directly create the account rule saying this is my constant value. So this we are not going to use it, but we have this option. So we'll have to understand the options that we have. Okay, so I'll just copy this. So now there if you see, so we have given the condition saying this is the supplier, okay, and then we said that this is the chart of account that we want to use, and then based on that, so we have given the different segment names, and for each one of that, so we have given different options, okay. So now here I'll take this one, okay, and also similar to that I have my segment, okay. So now here as I said you will not have this option to import, but there if you see, okay, maybe I'll just go back to that screen and I'll show there. So there we have this import option, but here it's the manual entry that we'll have to do, okay. So if the rule that we are going to create is probably like 10 to 20, so which we can create it here. Okay, so let's assume that we have probably, let's say, more than 50 or 100 records that we are going to create. So we cannot manually sit and create all the 100 setups for this account rule in the screen. So instead, we can do as an Excel import. Okay, so that's the option that we have there. Okay, so now this option, it is similar to that. Okay, so I'll just select this. So if you see, so here we are selecting segment and then we are selecting account and the chart of accounts. So even there if you remember, so we did the same thing, but one thing that is in addition that we'll have is that so there will not be able to set the constant values and all those things, but here I can do the constant value. So basically the additional options that you can use it here in the account rule. So let's say I wanted to use as an constant rule. Okay. So what I can do is that so for this particular segment that is account, so I can say this is my account that I want to generate. So directly I can do that. Okay. So which means if it is this chart of accounts, so then automatically system will generate this account, so which I will not need it. So instead if I want to give a condition, so I can give the condition here. Okay, so this is in case of how do you call it, the constant value. Okay, so the other thing is that so we have this mapping set. Okay, so now whatever the mapping set that I have created, so now if you see for the account, so the mapping set that we created is I think, yeah, or account, yeah, this is the one, us underscore pl underscore account. So this is the one that we created. Okay, so conditions already we have given it in the mapping set, but in case if we are not using this mapping set, so instead let's say I'm using this account rule. Okay, so wherein I'll have to give the account. Okay, and then I can say this is the one that I wanted to pick up. Okay, so instead of that formula, again the same thing. So these are the multiple options that we have. So in this case, so since we have already created the mapping set, so I'm just going with this one. And also the condition part we have already created. So I'm not going to create the condition, but I'll just show you. So what are the options that we have in the condition screen? Okay, so it's the same thing which we saw in the mapping. So here we will have to give the field that we are going to select. Okay, so I'll just say search, and if I come down I'll see other fields. So let's say this is the field that we used for our this thing approval rules. Okay, so if this is the buyer, then what system should do? So that's what we have written there. So similarly here, if you want to do this, so you can just say this is the buyer. Let me give this as probably Ronnie. Okay. So similarly, you can add your own conditions. So it's similar to that. Okay. So maybe you can just validate to cross check if the condition that we have created is correct. So the condition is correct. Okay. Okay. Maybe for time being, I'll just say, okay, I'll let me leave this because this is the buyer that I'm going to use also. So let's say that I have added one condition here in the accounts rule and the other condition that is supplier in the mapping set. Okay, so these are the two conditions that I have given. Okay, so now we have validated also. Okay, so now one thing that we'll have to make sure that the status is active. Okay, so if the status is not inactive, so we'll have to go here and change the status to active. Okay. So in our case, the status is already inactive. Okay. So this we have created it for account. So let me create it for the other segments as well because this we created it by segment. Okay. So let me create it for company. Yeah, this is the one. And it is segment and the segment is company, and we have already created the mapping set. So I'm using the mapping set that we created, so that is department, sorry, this is company, this one. Okay, so so let me try to add the same condition here as well. Okay, so the company is also done. So next one is department. Okay, so this is cost center. So it is, I think, the department. Yeah, right. So again, I'll give the same condition, But this is not mandatory that this condition should be same for all the segments that we are giving, because that's the purpose of having different rule for different segment. Because probably I wanted to validate this based on, let's assume that based on the business unit, or based on the delivery location, or based on the requested. So I can change the condition as needed. Okay. So here, and also if I don't want to probably keep this condition, so I can just leave this option as blank. Okay. So in our scenario, so I'm giving this, but this is not mandatory to be given. Okay. So I have given it for department also. Tonus line of business. Okay, we have given department. Okay, so this is the one. Okay, I got to change it to mapping set. Yeah, line of business. Then the intercompany and the product is what we are looking at. Okay, maybe I'll leave this condition because this will add time, because if it is adding value we can do that, but anyway we have seen it for the other segments, so I'll just leave those as blank, okay, for the remaining segments, because anyway we have applied it for other segments. I think cost center is done. Yeah, finally we have the intercompany. So after this, I'll create one for the intercompany. Okay, so yeah, created this. So finally, I'll create it for intercompany, and then we'll go to the next setup, that is the transaction account definition. Yeah, this is the one. So we have created it for all the segments. Okay. So now this is done. So the next step is to add this to the transaction account definition. Okay, so I'll just click this. So now here I can say new transaction account definition. Okay, so say you say US primary ledger transaction account definition. Okay, so here I'll have to select the chart of account. So the one that we are using is this US chart of accounts. Okay, and here if you see, so based on the chart of account that we are selecting, so this segments will get changed. So if I select different chart of accounts, so I'll see different one. Okay, so that's about it. So now if you see here, so we have this approval, then we have the charge account, and then we have the variance. So the destination and the destination variation, again the same rule that we'll use, but if there is a requirement wherein, so destination is nothing but where we are receiving this item, basically the location. So based on that, if I want to generate the rule, I can make use of these two. But now I'm not using these two items, but I will use this one, that is the account rule. Okay, sorry, I will use the segment rule because we created separately for each one of it. Okay, so I'll just use this one. Yeah, this is the one. And similarly for the cost center, product and inventory. Okay, so this we have given it for accrual. So I don't think this will accept, because for accrual I'll have to keep the rule separately. Let me check if it accepts, because it's the same process that we are going to do. Okay, but it's only the change of account that we'll have to do. But I will have to select for each one of it again from the beginning, from segment one. I'll have to do it. So that's why I'm thinking. Okay, so maybe we'll see if this doesn't work, and then we'll see and we'll use the existing one. Because the setup is not going to change. So whatever we have given as a condition and the output, so that's what we are going to define again. Okay. Okay. So let me try to activate this. Yeah, it could be this error. Okay, for accrual, let me try to pick it from this list. Okay, because I'll have to build for all the segments again. So for this reason, I'm just avoiding this one. Okay, the rest I'll use the same thing what we have created. No errors. Give me a moment. Okay, let me try to do this because this should not stop us in terms of deploying, but let me see if this is the issue because we gave condition for one set, but logically this should not be the case because I can have for certain components with condition and for the certain components I don't want to have this as a condition. Okay, but anyway, I'll just use this rule for all the account rules. Okay, so this is part department. Okay. Okay, this I'll check because I'm not sure why this is failing because it's the standard one which we have given. Okay, so ideally this should not fail because for accrual, yes, we can expect it because this account we did not define it for accrual, but we used it for this one expense or the charge account. Okay, so that is okay, but the other one it should have worked for this, but then for the charge account also it's not allowing. But if we have something called an error or something, so then we can search. Okay, but here we don't have this also. So lastly, let me try to change the variance account, and I'll have only the charge account, and let's try. So if not, probably I'll have to check this. I'll check and then I'll demonstrate again. Okay.
Okay.
69529.
Yeah, again the same issue. So let me check this and I'll demonstrate this again. Okay. So I'll explain what I have done. So I'll just explain this process.
Okay.
Okay, so maybe we'll continue with the rest of the things. So probably in the next session I'll check, because this I'll have to check. So I don't want to waste time. So I'll do this and then I'll show this. Okay, so now we have created the purchase order. Okay, so we are here. Yeah, so this is the purchase order that we created. Okay, so probably okay, one thing I'll check. I'm not sure if the purchase order is three-way, because if we don't have set it as three-way, so we will have to create a fresh. So let me check. Ideally, it should have been two because we did not change it. We missed this one thing. Yeah, so this is three-way. So let me do a withdraw and let me try to change this. And again, we will initiate the upload. So just say withdraw. Okay, so now let me say edit. Okay, so just say this is reset and three-way matching. Okay, so again I'll have to initiate it for approval. So we'll just submit this for approval and then we'll log in as I think the approval that we set is I think so we'll try to log in as stock. Okay, so let me just check if this is assigned to the person. So let me just cross check because it will also take some time to get it assigned. So I'll go to the transaction console. Okay, I think the rule has failed.
It has not picked up.
Yeah, I mean the rule has failed actually, so it did not satisfy the condition that we gave. But I changed only these two things. I'm not sure if there is any change to the one that we set it up. I think we configured this, but then it is disabled, I think. Yeah, someone has disabled ours and enabled something else. That's why it has failed. Okay, let me try to pick that transaction again and let's see if processes this time. really. Yeah, so now this, okay, this user which he gave is for this one, I think, the managerial approval hierarchy, Helen. Okay, so but then for the purchasing, we did this mapping. Okay, so it got, so, so since it is test environment, someone has disabled, I think. So that's why it didn't go through the approval flow. So I'll just use this login to approve this request. Okay, I think the password has been changed. Okay, the password is not wrong. I mean, I gave it the different name. That's why it did not appear, I think. Yeah, so this is the one. So I'll just say approve and I'll try to log out and check if the status of the PO is approved. So if the status is an approved, then the next step for us is to receive the item. Okay, so this is the order. So change this to order and search for this. Yeah, so this has been approved, the status is open. So if the status is an open, so which means that the item is, I mean, this particular purchase order is released, and probably vendor will ship the items on the agreed timeline. Okay. Okay, so now what I will do is that, so probably I will try to receive the item. So for this, I will need a role. So let me take this user. Yeah, this is the one. Okay, so I'll just give the data access as well. So the access that I should be giving is with the Supremo. Okay, so it is manage data access. Okay, so I'll just give the business unit access. So it is no, Supremo US business unit. Okay, so I'll just run this program, the synchronization program, and then we'll try to log out from the system and log in back and see if. Okay, it is here. But okay, maybe it will take time to refresh, I think, because the role part that we have given it, but probably it should take 10 to 30 seconds time, I believe. Okay. This role should be by default. Let me check if this role is also part of this. Receiving agent services Aurora RCD. Okay. Okay, I think this role is not associated. So basically, we'll need two roles. So one is the supply chain application administrator, okay, and the other one is this receiving agent, so which we will have it as part of the standard one in our test environment. But then somehow this role is not associated with the user, okay. So just I have done the association, so I'll give access to the unit also. So the purchase order that we created is for the unit Supremo US business unit. Okay. So for the same Supremo unit, I will try to give access to this unit reorganization. I think this is the one. Let's check. If not this, we'll come back to this screen and assign the correct one. But I believe this is the one because when we define this common options, I remember that we saw this as plant 001. So I think this should be PL001. Okay, so let's check. I'll just try to log out and log in once again. Yeah, so we have the inventory management. So wherein we can find the items to be received. Okay, so here I'll have to say receive expected shipments. Okay, and the purchase order that we have is this. So let me try to search the purchase order. Let number. Okay, let me check if the inventory unit that we gave access is correct. Because for that, the sequence of number generation for PO number itself different. So probably we might be looking at the different transactions. So before that, let me cross check if this is the business unit first. Yeah, so this is Supremo business unit. Yeah, I think the organization is 410. I think we have given access to the wrong inventory organization. So let me try to give the access to 410. That's the reason we did not get our PO there. So it is 410. Yeah, so this is the one. Okay, so I'll just run that program once again and I'll log out and log in. So we should be good. Okay. Probably the program is already running. So let me try to log out and log in, and I will see again if we are able to see the purchase order and receive the items. So probably we should be able to see the purchase order now. So let me try to log in. Yeah, so now we are getting it. So, yeah, so the issue is this. So, the wrong inventory organization was associated. So, I'll just search with the purchase order number. Okay. So, since we have given it as three-way matching, so we are able to get this the item that we booked for. Okay. And I'll say receipt to create the receipt in the system. Okay. And here if we know the quantity, so we can just enter the quantity, or if I don't know the quantity, so I can say show the quantity, which is going to give the quantity. Okay, so here, and then here if you see, so this is again populated from this thing, the purchase order. So the destination type is expense, because there it is the expense. Okay. And here you can see more details. Okay, so this is about the receipt date and who has created the receipt and who's the supplier, and what is the purchase order. So similar to the purchase order, I mean the requisition number, we can also drill down to the purchase order number. Okay, so again if we create the invoice, so we will have access to drill down to the receipt and the purchase order as well. So it's as I said, so it's basically interlinked between the entities. Okay, so between the transactions. So that's about it. So I'm just saying create receipt. So either I can add to the existing receipt, or I can say create new receipt. So I'll just say create new receipts. Okay, and here I can just verify and say submit. So now the receipt will be created in the system. Okay, so we'll get the receipt reference number, and yeah, so this is the receipt reference number. So using this, we will try to create invoice wherein we'll match this receipt and create the invoice. Okay, so I'll go back to the payable module here and invoice. Okay, so here create invoice. Okay, so I'll just copy paste the purchase order number Okay, so here if you see, so we have already the prepayment with us, which means that this is kind of an alert, but not exactly the pop-up or something like that, but it's just an icon. So if we hover over the icon, so we will have this information populated. That is whether the prepayment count is 1, 2, 3, 4, and the total amount. Okay, so just the pop-up that we can see. So I will say this is 100 and I'll try to match it here. Okay, so the same option. Okay, so in terms of flow, we don't have any change. So it's only about the change in quantity or change in price. So that is what we are looking at here. Okay. So now, okay, so this is set it up as pay and receipt. Okay, so that's why we are getting that warning. So probably we should remove that. Okay. So now here if you see, so we have ordered for only one quantity. So that's the reason we are seeing one quantity. But then if we have probably let's say ordered for 10 quantities, but then I wanted to receive four quantities, which means that I received four quantities. So I'm billing for four quantities. So now what I can do is that so I can so here by default it will show as 10 quantities. So manually I can change this to four quantities. So if I do that, so here if you see, so I will see the order quantity is 10, available quantity is 6, and received and billed is 4. Okay, so this is what I'll see. And then we have something called return. So return is something that we have received this item. So again, this depends on the company policy. So if I'm going to return this item and vendor is going to accept it or not. So it depends on the item that we have purchased for. But if it is agreed upon, so I can use this return option. So if it is returned, so probably out of 10, so I returned 2, so which means I'll see return 2 and received 6 and billed 6 and available as 4. Okay, so this is what about this. And as I said, so these are basically the hyperlink. So probably you can just click this option and you can, I mean, this will take you to the actual transaction. It could be the purchase order or the receipt. Okay. Okay, and then here if you see, so we have something called unit price. So now, if I change this unit price here in the invoice screen, then I will have something called an invoice price variance. Because let's say here the price that I'm adding here is that 110 rupees, but then my purchase order price is 100 rupees. So now this 10 rupees will go to the invoice price variance. Okay. So in the transaction account builder, what we saw as PO price, that is the difference between the inventory and inventory meaning the item price, the item list price, the difference between item list price and the PO price. So that we call it as PO price variance. So now if I have one price in purchase order that is 100 and in the invoice screen I'm changing this price to 110 rupees, which means that this 10 rupees difference will go to the invoice variance account. Okay, so this is how basically we track it. But as a best practice, we will not suggest to make the changes directly in the invoice screen because this will not have link between the purchase order price that we are maintaining there and the invoice price that we have it here. Okay, so now if there is any change in the price, that has to be routed through the purchase order because that is the reason we are having this option of PO and then receiving the item and then invoicing the particular bill. Okay, the reason being, so I wanted to basically have this control if there is any change to the purchase order, so then that needs to be updated in the purchase order document because this purchase order document is the actual document that I have given it to the vendor. So now if there is any change, so vendor will have to update his details and give it to me. But then vendor, what he will give is that this invoice copy. But then for me, this is not the source document. For me, the purchase order is the source document. So I will have to change those details there in the purchase order screen. Okay, so instead of changing here, I can go back to that screen and change. But apart from that, so I also have the correct matched invoices, meaning if there is any quantity increase or decrease, I can do, or if there is any price increase or decrease, I can do it. Here we have the option. So these are for some of ad hoc or the immediate basis. If I want to do it, then I can do. But it is suggested that we make any changes in the system in the purchase order document, and that particular change will go through the approval process, because the manager should be aware that this is the change that we have gotten, and this change needs to be approved by the manager. Okay, so that's the practice usually that will follow. If at all user asks us to probably change the price or the quantity, thing. So we'll suggest that let's change the price in the purchase order, and then the flow will be same, because there we'll have one data and here we'll have one data. And then, so this we are talking about in terms of reconciliation, because at the end of the year or end of the period, so if business comes back to us asking for the reconciliation, so we will have to drill down to the transaction to the transaction. So instead, if this is corrected at the purchase order level, so we will not have this difference when we do the reconciliation at the period. Okay, so that's the idea. Okay. Yeah, so the rest of the process are same. Okay, so only it is about this. So one thing where you can identify that this is two-way matching or three-way matching. One thing is that you will know here in the line item that is three-way matching. But apart from that, so if you search with the receipt number, you will get the data only when this particular purchase order is created with three-way matching. Okay, so that's about it. And if I invoice it and do the payment, so this purchase order lines will get closed automatically. Okay, so let me just complete this invoicing part. So sorry. Okay, so this is the number. Actually, I should have clicked the other field, that is to validate, but instead I clicked save and create new. Yeah, this is the one I intended to click. Okay, so I'll just say, so I'll have to change the amount now, because I wanted to see the tax amount, and then I'll give the tax amount, the actual amount. Okay. Okay, so for this taxation purpose, it depends on the scenario. So whether we are creating at item level or we are handling at supplier level. So if it is handled at supplier level, so then this entire taxation and the configurations will be done by finance team. But if at all this, so let's assume that we are talking about India scenario. So in that case, then maybe it is about the GST taxation that we are talking about. So here in this case, so it's not only the finance team that they will do the setup or the configuration. It is also we will do the configuration, because here if you see, so we are generating based on the item. So how are we generating? So based on the category that we associate. So now I will give one category called item category, that would be the actual item, and then we have something called HSN codes, so which will determine the tax rates for this particular item. Okay, so that will be given by the business. So they will give us these are the HSN codes for each item, and we will have to do the mapping. So we will have to do mapping at the inventory side, and finance will do their mapping at the taxation module. Okay, so that's the flow. But then the this taxation part, what we need to do in terms of configurations, so that we'll see as part of inventory, because there we'll talk about the inventory categories. Okay, by then I'll explain, and I'll show where exactly it created. So this we have seen it at high level. So when we created this inventory organization and the inventory class, so because there we had that as a prerequisite. Okay, by then we created that, but then we will create this actually in the system when we see the inventory module. Okay, yeah. So I'll just validate this. Okay, so the invoice is validated. So let me just complete the flow with the payment. I think the approval. Yeah, I'll do force approval. Okay, so this is approved. Let me complete the payment. Okay, so this is the payment number 1249. Okay, so the payment part is completed. So if you see here, so the payment is with tax. Okay, okay, fine. So this is about the three-way matching. Okay, so I will just go back to the screen, the purchase order. Yeah. Okay. So now if you see, the status of the invoice is closed because we have billed for this purchase order completely. So if I have only billed partially, which means that out of 10 quantities, so let's say I have billed it for only 5 quantities. So then I will not see the status as closed. The status will be still open. Okay. So now if I try to invoice with this purchase order, so system will give me warning saying that I'm overbilling, because the quantity that I have ordered here is that one quantity. But then here the state is also closed. If you remember, so we saw something called include closed purchase orders also. So which means even if the purchase order is closed, so I have received bill referring to this purchase order, but then I wanted to do the invoicing on priority, so probably at later point in time, so I'll book it later. Okay, so that's a scenario we'll use it, but for that purpose, so system also gives us the warning saying we have already billed for this purchase order, and also it is being billed completely, so the status is closed. Okay, so now the status will see as closed only when we have the quantities that is completely built. Okay, so that's about it. So now this part is done. Okay, so okay, maybe I'll just open this one, and Okay, so maybe we'll try to revisit what we have completed and what we have. Okay, so the approval part we have seen it, that is setting up the approval or understanding what is approval and what are the options that we have in terms of approval and how do we edit the approval rules and delete and creating the new approval rules. Okay, so these things that we have seen it. So I'll just mark this yellow. Okay, and then we have seen the purchase order. Okay, so we have seen how to create the purchase order, and we have seen what are the things that we have inside this purchase order screen. Okay, that is inventory arc and two-way, three-way, and giving the item description, all those things that we have seen. Okay, so that is one thing. And then we saw the setup part. Okay, so if I want to create this purchase order, then what are the setups that I need to do? Okay, so because unless I have the setups configured, so I'll not be able to create the purchase order. So here, as part of this, so we have only one thing that is left out, that is the transaction account builder. So that is this part. Okay, so since we have this as open, I'm marking this as in yellow. Okay, the purchase order, because that is related to the transaction account builder, that is account generation. Okay, so I'll mark this as yellow, but I'll leave the transaction account builder as it is, which means that I'll check that issue and we'll see that in later class. The setup part is that's it, but we'll see maybe the account type could be different. So the account that I have selected should be the expense account, and if it is accrual, it should be the liability account. But I'm not sure if we are selecting the right one, but I don't want to spend time on that. Okay, so for that reason, I just left that. Okay, yeah, and then the requisition. So we saw the basics of requisition, and we saw what are the scenarios that we will create this request, and we saw few options as well in terms of creating the requisition. Okay, so that is one thing, and also we saw how to write the approval rules for the requisition, and we saw how this approval flow worked out. So basically for approval, we saw if I want to process this with multiple options. So in this case, we are left with one approval. So I'll just go back to this one also. I think we marked approvals and different things. Yeah, so it is here. So here we have seen this approval group wherein we created this approval group and we have seen it. Okay, and then we saw for one case that is below 1,000 rupees the auto approval. So that is also seen. Okay, and for the requisition we saw that we attach this manager. So the manager that we have seen is that this one, the Kelvin Rath. Okay, so we have set it up as a manager and we have attached to the manager this thing, okay, field. And then we try to initiate this requisition, and then we saw how this flow is working. So we could find the approval request coming there as well. Okay, so we have seen this also. Okay, so what are the two things that we are left with is this. So one is this user and the other one is parallel. So parallel is something that we will send this approval request to two managers. So if manager one approves this request, so then so this will work out in a way that if I have in same career I have two managers. Okay, so if this manager did not approve it, so there are two options that I can do. So I can So when I say I here, it is not the buyer or the employee who can set this up. So this is at the configuration level, which means the person who is going to implement the procurement module for the customer. Okay. So now there are two options. So one is that I can set the deadlines, meaning I can say if this approval is not approved before so and so date, I wanted to basically auto approve it. So that is also possible. Or I can say that if manager one does not approve, so let's say let's get it approved with manager two. Okay, so that is the scenario where will set this parallel approval. Okay, so these are the two things that we have. So probably I'll use this one for our next transaction. Okay, the user, and then finally for one flow, that is, so we have seen already the flow, but I'll show how this also works with the one purchase order. Okay, because anyway we will have to correct this transaction account builder and we'll have to see the purchase order flow. Okay, so when we see that flow, I'll use this approval, that is parallel, and we'll see that. Okay, so now what we will do is that, so we'll use it for this one, the user. That means that I'm not specifying whether it is hierarchy or approver. I know this is the manager who is going to approve. So directly I'll say if this is the request, then this will be approved by this manager. Okay, so it's again the simple process, but we'll see how this works. Okay, so we have seen this requisition also. Okay, so I'll just mark this also in yellow. Okay, and yeah, so these things, the catalog at high level we have seen, but not these details we have seen it. So we are yet to see this part, okay, and we are also yet to see this supplier, okay. So the supplier portal. So supplier portal, it is a simple process. So probably we'll complete this first. Okay. So we have completed three-way matching. So okay. So I'll just go back to this Excel. Okay. I think it's the same Excel sheet. Okay. So we have completed this, and then we have completed this. So lastly, we have this four-way matching. Okay. So that we will see. So as part of that, okay, I think the same Excel. Yeah, as part of that, we will first see this option. Okay, so that is creating the catalog and how do we create it. So what are the options that we have in terms of setting up. Okay, so this we will see, and then what we will do is that, so we will try to create one requisition. Okay, so wherein we will not use non-catalog, so instead we will use the catalog purchase. Okay, and then we'll see how the smart form and these things works. Okay, so if you remember, so we saw something called Amazon and office supplies or something like that. So we'll do that activity. Okay, so we'll have our own catalogs created, and using that catalog, so basically we will try to create one requisition and the purchase order. So start, so it's only about the requisition that we will cover this part. And coming to the purchase order and this thing, it is same. So it is only the matching option that we are going to change. And instead of ending up in the receipt transaction, so we also do the inspection. Okay, so this is what we have. Okay, and yeah, so if we are able to complete this, then finally we will see this supplier portal. So supplier portal, it is nothing but option wherein, so this is also asked by the customer, because if we purchase this procurement license, so let's say I get 100 procurement license, which is the minimum license that I can get. Okay, when I say license, it is not exactly the license, it is the subscription that I'm referring to, the license, because when we talk about the count, it is mostly we'll say it is the license. Okay, so that's the reason I'm using the term license, but it is actually the subscription. It is yearly basis that we will have to pay. Okay, so that's about it. So now, if I pay for this procurement license, so let's say for 100, so I will also get this supplier approval workflow, which means that if I create new supplier in the system, so I will get an option wherein I can send it for the approval. The reason being, so there are certain scenarios where this supply chain team or the procurement team, they will not have the complete information of the supplier, because the complete information of the supplier will be stored or handled by the finance team. But then this, in terms of structure, if you see, it is not given to the accounts payable. It is associated with the procurement. So even if you see there, so I went to the procurement tile, and then from there I went to this thing. Okay, the supplier screen. Okay, so that's the reason it is handled by the procurement team. So as I said, so when I raise this purchase order, I know at high level what this particular supplier is going to do, but I'm not sure exactly what are the other details. But because when we talk about suppliers, it's not only the supplier name that we will capture, because so there could be a possibility that we have smooth relation with the supplier, or there could be some possibility that we might end up in the disputes. Okay, or probably for the additional information, so I wanted to capture more information. So when we say more information, it is the supplier bank account, it is the supplier PAN number, GST number, all those information. Okay, because tomorrow if there is any complaints, so let's take India scenario. Okay, so if we are taking India scenario, so I have, so again this is part of finance, but we will have to understand that. Okay, so that's it. So we have this GST. Okay, so now we have so when we file this GST, so we have the purchase transactions, and then we have the sales transaction. So now purchase transaction will be uploaded by us, that is to whom we are going to implement. Okay, which means the customer. So this will be uploaded by the vendor. So whoever is selling, so he or she will upload the sales part. So now the reason why we do this activity is that, so to avoid this double taxation and to get the refund from the government. Okay, so let's say I have already paid 110, let's say. Okay, but then I should have charged only 100 rupees. Okay, because we no more has this concept of VAT and the other things. So I will get this 100 rupees in refund. Okay, because this 10 rupees addition should have been paid by the vendor. So now what will happen is that, so already I have paid 10 rupees extra. So if I give these two data, which means that I am uploading mine and vendor is uploading his transaction. So government is going to verify and credit me back this 10,000 rupees. So this is what we are referring to the returns, or ITR. Okay. So in finance term, it is actually the ITC, which means that input tax credit. Okay. So for this purpose, we'll do this thing. Okay. So now to avoid this, so usually it is the supplier that is created by the procurement team. So even if it is created by the procurement team, it will go to the finance manager. So finance manager will verify the PAN number, GST number, bank details, address, state, all those information, the basic informations basically. Okay, because if we restrict this at the level of supplier creation, so we will have certain control in terms of creating the transaction. Okay, so that's the purpose of having this approval mechanism. Okay, so for that reason I wanted to cover this once we complete this, that is catalog. So catalog is not a big topic, but we will have to understand how this works. Okay, so this is one thing. And then the second thing is this one, the four-way matching. Okay, so once these two or these three topics are covered, so we are good with procurement. Maybe you can also check once. Okay, so if you want to cover anything else, or if we are left with anything, so probably you can check and let me know. So in the next session, so we'll cover these things. That is supplier catalog. I'll also cover this one, tab, and finally the four-way matching.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, so once this is done, so then we'll cover this one, inventory. So we go to inventory. So inventory, as I said, so we have seen only the prerequisite part of this thing, but apart from that, we have other options. The cycle count and these things are there. Okay, so the part of things probably we might have seen here. So the receipt part and these things. Okay, so purposefully I did not show the return, because if I show return also, then we don't have much in the warehouse receiving part. So that's the reason I did not show this one there. Okay. So we'll see that as part of that. Okay. So these are the topics that we have planned for the inventory. Okay. So we'll see this. So probably we'll try to complete this part fully in the next session. Okay. And then from that we'll start the inventory.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So meanwhile, maybe you can try to set up, or if you want to practice with this thing, so probably you can try to create one transaction that is with the approval, maybe, or because why I'm saying to create the approval, because that is when we will know the other things are common. So we know that if I enable this option, it is going to control or restrict, or it's understandable. But approval, if I don't do it in a way that I wanted to do it, then I'll have to just reset here and there. And I don't know whether it's working as per I need. So that's the reason I'm asking to set up the approval. But the other things, maybe you can use the existing setup, or if you want to create a new one, maybe you can create new one, because creating new one, it's from scratch, which is a time consuming activity. So that's why. But approval, maybe you can enable, and you can see if you are able to create the two-way matching and the three-way matching, whatever we have seen till now.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. So maybe we can close for now, and yeah, that's all I plan for today's testing.